Hi guys, welcome back to our channel. I hope you are doing great. Today we are going to explain a brand new Chinese sci-fi action drama, Tempest, The Last Mecha. In this video I will explain the complete story of this amazing drama, including all the major events, powerful battles, emotional moments, shocking twists, and the journey of the legendary warrior who hides his true identity from the world. This drama is full of giant mecha battles, secret missions, dangerous enemies, and a fight to save humanity. So stay with us until the end because this story becomes more exciting and intense with every moment. Now, without wasting any more time, let's start the complete explanation of Tempest, The Last Mecha. Years before the events of Tempest, The Last Mecha, humanity was living in a world where technology had reached an unbelievable level. After years of scientific development, humans created massive combat machines known as mechas. These giant machines were not just ordinary weapons. They were powerful war machines controlled by specially trained pilots who had the ability to synchronize their minds with these mechanical giants. A single mecha could change the outcome of an entire battle, and the pilots who controlled them became the new heroes of the world. Among all the skilled warriors, there was one name that everyone knew, one legend who stood above all others, and that name was Colt Thorn. Colt was known as the greatest mecha pilot in human history. People around the world called him the Mecha King because his skills were beyond imagination. While other pilots struggled to control advanced machines, Colt could perfectly synchronize with the most powerful mechas ever created. His bravery and talent allowed him to complete missions that many believed were impossible. He fought against dangerous enemies, protected innocent lives, and became a symbol of hope for humanity. Wherever there was a crisis, people believed that the Mecha King would appear and save them. However, behind the image of a fearless hero was a man carrying deep emotional pain. Colt's life had been destroyed by tragedy. The loss of his parents changed him forever, and left a wound inside his heart that never healed. Even though the world praised him as a hero, every victory reminded him of the people he had lost. The fame, respect, and glory no longer gave him happiness. Every battle became a painful reminder of his past, and slowly Colt started feeling tired of the endless war. After years of fighting, Colt finally made a decision that shocked everyone. He disappeared from the battlefield without telling anyone the reason. The legendary Mecha King vanished, and the world was left wondering what happened to the greatest warrior they had ever known. Some believed he died in battle, while others thought he abandoned humanity. But the truth was completely different. Colt was alive, hiding from the world and leaving behind the identity that had made him famous. Instead of sitting inside a powerful mecha cockpit, Colt now lived a simple and quiet life. He changed his identity and started working as a normal janitor inside a large mecha research facility. Every day he cleaned the huge halls, repaired damaged equipment, and stayed away from attention. The people around him only saw him as an ordinary worker with no special abilities. Nobody could imagine that the quiet man walking through the facility had once been the strongest mecha pilot in the world. Colt accepted this simple life because he wanted to escape from his painful memories. He believed that the only way to find peace was to forget the battlefield forever. He avoided conversations about war, ignored the powerful machines around him, and tried to convince himself that the Mecha King no longer existed. But deep inside, the warrior spirit was still alive. Every time he saw a mecha standing in the hangar, memories of his old life returned. He remembered the battles, the sacrifices, and the people he failed to save. Inside the same research facility worked a talented engineer named Freya. Unlike many people who were interested only in power and success, Freya truly believed that technology should be used to protect humanity. She was intelligent, kind, and dedicated to creating better systems for mecha pilots. Years earlier, when Colt was suffering from his darkest moments, Freya was the person who helped him survive. Her kindness became a light in his life when everything else felt meaningless. Although Freya did not know Colt's true identity, her presence gave him a reason to continue living. Colt secretly cared about her and watched over her from a distance. He never told her about his feelings or his past because he believed his old identity would only bring danger into her life. For him, seeing Freya happy and safe was enough. He was willing to remain an unknown janitor if it meant protecting the one person who had once saved him. But peace never lasts forever, especially in a world filled with hidden enemies and powerful ambitions. While Colt was trying to live quietly, a dangerous plan was already developing behind the scenes. Unknown forces were preparing something that would threaten not only the Mecha program but the entire future of humanity. The research facility where Colt worked was one of the most advanced places in the world. Scientists were developing new mecha technology, while military leaders searched for ways to defend humanity from growing threats. Recently, mysterious enemies had started appearing near human territories, destroying defense stations and leaving behind complete destruction. The attacks were unlike anything humanity had faced before. When news of these attacks reached the facility, the entire atmosphere changed. Emergency alarms started ringing, military officers rushed into the command center, and everyone realized that a new war might be approaching. The enemy was becoming stronger, and humanity needed a powerful protector. Since the legendary Mecha King had disappeared years ago, the military decided to search for a new pilot who could become the next symbol of hope. A special mecha pilot selection program was announced, and many talented warriors joined the competition to prove their abilities. At the same time, Freya became deeply involved in improving the mecha synchronization system. She worked day and night to create technology that could help pilots control machines more effectively. However, she did not know that powerful people inside the system were hiding dangerous secrets. Colt quickly noticed that something was wrong. His experience as a former warrior allowed him to recognize danger before anyone else. Strange officers appeared around the facility, restricted areas increased, and confidential information started moving under heavy security. His instincts told him that a major conspiracy was happening, but Colt tried to ignore it. He reminded himself that he was no longer the Mecha King, and that the problems of the world were no longer his responsibility. But everything changed when Freya discovered something shocking during her research. While examining the mecha system, she found hidden information about illegal experiments involving human pilots. The files revealed that someone was secretly using dangerous methods to create stronger mecha warriors. Shocked by the discovery, Freya copied the information because she wanted to expose the truth. Unfortunately, the people behind the conspiracy quickly discovered her actions. Instead of allowing the truth to come out, they decided to silence Freya. They created fake evidence and accused her of stealing classified military information. Overnight, the respected engineer became a criminal in the eyes of the world. When armed soldiers arrived at the laboratory to arrest Freya, everyone was shocked. She tried to explain the truth, but nobody listened. From a distance, Colt watched everything happen. His hands were tightly closed, and his heart was telling him to step forward. He knew Freya was innocent, and he knew he had the power to stop them. But revealing himself meant bringing back the identity he had buried for years. As Freya was taken away, she looked at Colt for a moment. Even without saying anything, Colt understood the fear in her eyes. That single moment broke the promise he had made to himself. He had spent years hiding from the world, but now the person who gave him hope needed him. The legendary Mecha King was about to return. After Freya was taken away by the security forces, the entire research facility became silent. Everyone who had worked with her for years was shocked, because they knew Freya was not the type of person who would betray humanity. She had always dedicated her life to protecting people through technology, but the powerful people behind the conspiracy had carefully created a false story that made her look like a dangerous criminal. The authorities believed the fake evidence, and Freya was locked away while the real truth remained hidden. Colt stood there watching everything happen, unable to move. His mind was filled with memories of the past. He remembered the first time he met Freya, the moment when she helped him during his darkest days. At that time, Colt had lost all hope and wanted to leave everything behind. He had been tired of fighting, tired of losing people, and tired of carrying the responsibility of being the world's strongest warrior. But Freya's kindness reminded him that there was still something worth protecting. For years, Colt had convinced himself that staying hidden was the right choice. He believed that if he disappeared, the people around him would be safer. The identity of the Mecha King had brought enemies, danger, and endless battles. He wanted Freya to live a normal life without being connected to his dangerous past. But now he realized that hiding had not protected her. The enemy had reached her even when he tried to stay away. That night, Colt returned to his small room inside the facility. The simple life he had built suddenly felt meaningless. The cleaning uniform, the quiet routine, and the fake identity he created could not hide the truth anymore. Deep inside, the warrior he had buried for years was waking up again. He looked at the old equipment he had kept hidden, including memories from his days as the legendary pilot. Every item reminded him of the person he used to be. Meanwhile, Freya was being questioned by military officials. They wanted information about the files she discovered, but she refused to reveal anything because she knew the truth would expose the people controlling the system. She understood that the conspiracy was much bigger than she originally thought. These powerful enemies were not only trying to control mecha technology, they were preparing something that could change the future of humanity forever. The officials tried to break Freya's confidence, telling her that nobody would believe her story. They showed her the fake evidence and claimed that Colt, the quiet janitor, had nothing to do with her situation. But Freya remained calm because she believed there was still someone who could uncover the truth. She remembered Colt's eyes before she was taken away. Even though he said nothing, she knew he understood what was happening. Back at the research facility, Colt secretly entered restricted areas using the skills he had gained from years of battle experience. Even though he was no longer officially a pilot, his knowledge of mecha systems was still unmatched. He discovered that the enemy had been using the research program to create artificial warriors with enhanced abilities. The illegal experiments Freya found were only one part of a much larger plan. Colt realized that the people behind this operation were not only corrupt officials. They were connected to a powerful organization that had been preparing for a massive war. Their goal was to create the ultimate mecha force and control the future of humanity. They believed ordinary humans were too weak to survive, and that only their engineered warriors deserved to rule. As Colt continued investigating, he found old records connected to his own past. The discovery shocked him because some of the experiments were related to technology from the same program that created his legendary mecha. Colt started questioning everything he knew. Maybe the battles he fought years ago were not as simple as he believed. Maybe someone had been controlling events from the shadows all along. At the same time, the enemy learned that someone had entered their secret system. They immediately started searching for the person responsible. They did not know that the mysterious intruder was actually the man they had feared for years. The name Mecha King had become a legend, and many enemies believed Colt was gone forever. Colt reached the old mecha hangar where his legendary machine was stored. The giant machine stood silently, covered with dust after years of being abandoned. Looking at it brought back memories of countless battles. He remembered the people who fought beside him, the lives he saved, and the sacrifices he made. For a moment, he hesitated because returning to the battlefield meant accepting the pain he had tried to escape. But then he remembered Freya. He remembered how she gave him hope when he had nothing left. He remembered her smile and the way she believed technology should protect people instead of destroying them. Colt finally understood that running away from his past would not change anything. If he truly wanted to protect the people he cared about, he had to face the darkness again. Colt activated the old mecha system. The machine that had once saved humanity came back to life after years of silence. The powerful engines started, the lights turned on, and the entire hangar shook with energy. The legendary warrior was returning. However, before Colt could rescue Freya, the enemy made their next move. They launched a powerful attack against the facility, sending advanced enemy mechas toward the research center. The military forces were completely unprepared because they had underestimated the enemy's strength. The new machines were faster, stronger, and more dangerous than anything humanity had ever faced. As alarms filled the facility, everyone panicked. The pilots who had entered the selection program tried to fight back, but they quickly realized that their opponents were on another level. The enemy mechas destroyed defenses one after another, and it looked like the facility would fall. Then from the darkness a massive mecha appeared. The soldiers could not believe their eyes. The design was old, but the power coming from it was unbelievable. The machine moved with perfect control, destroying enemy units with incredible speed and skill. Everyone watching wondered who could possibly control such a powerful mecha. The answer shocked them. The forgotten hero had returned. Colt, the man everyone thought was just a simple janitor, was once again sitting inside the cockpit of the legendary mecha. The Mecha King had finally come back to the battlefield. But this time he was not fighting for fame or glory. He was fighting to save Freya and uncover the truth behind the greatest conspiracy humanity had ever faced. The moment Colt's legendary mecha appeared on the battlefield, the entire research facility became frozen in shock. The soldiers, engineers, and pilots who were fighting for survival could not understand what they were seeing. For years, the name Mecha King had only existed as a legend. Many believed that Colt Thorne was gone forever. But now the same powerful machine that once protected humanity had returned. The movement, the speed, and the perfect control of the mecha made it clear that only one person in the world could operate it. Colt entered the battlefield without saying a single word. Inside the cockpit, memories from his old life started returning. The sounds of past battles, the faces of fallen friends, and the pain he had buried for years all came back at once. But this time, Colt was not the same person who fought only because he had to. He was fighting with a new purpose. He was not searching for victory or recognition. He was fighting because someone important to him was in danger. The enemy mechas attacked without hesitation. Their machines were completely different from the ones Colt had fought before. They were faster, more advanced, and controlled by pilots who had been enhanced through illegal experiments. The enemy believed that their new technology had made them unbeatable. They thought the old Mecha King would be nothing more than a forgotten warrior from the past. But they were wrong. Colt moved his mecha with unbelievable precision. Every attack, every movement, and every defense showed the experience of a warrior who had spent years fighting impossible battles. The younger pilots watching the fight could not believe what they were seeing. They had trained for years, but Colt controlled his machine like it was a part of his own body. One by one, the enemy mechas started falling. The same machines that had destroyed entire defense units were being defeated easily. The soldiers who once doubted the existence of the Mecha King finally understood why his name had become a legend. Colt was not just a skilled pilot. He was someone who had reached a level nobody else could match. However, the battle was only the beginning. While Colt was fighting outside, the people behind the conspiracy continued their plan. They realized that the biggest threat to their operation had returned. The person they feared most was no longer hiding. They immediately changed their strategy and prepared a new weapon designed specifically to defeat Colt. Inside the enemy command center, the leaders watched the battle with anger. They could not accept that one man had destroyed their advanced machines so easily. They believed that Colt's disappearance had made him weak, but they quickly discovered that his years away from battle had not removed his abilities. In fact, his experience had made him even more dangerous. Meanwhile, Freya was still trapped inside the enemy facility. She watched the battle through security screens and immediately recognized the mecha fighting against the enemies. Even though nobody had told her who was inside, she knew the truth. The person who had spent years hiding his identity had finally returned. For the first time since her arrest, Freya felt hope. She knew Colt would not return unless something truly important forced him to. She understood how much pain he carried and how hard he had worked to leave the battlefield behind. The fact that he returned meant he was willing to face his greatest fears again. But Freya also realized something dangerous. The moment Colt revealed himself, every enemy who wanted the Mecha King destroyed would come after him. His peaceful life was over, and there was no way to return to being an ordinary janitor. After defeating the first wave of enemies, Colt returned to the facility. Everyone looked at him differently now. The same people who ignored him before suddenly realized that the quiet worker they had walked past every day was actually humanity's greatest hero. Some soldiers apologized for underestimating him, while others simply stood in silence because they could not believe they had been around a legend without knowing it. But Colt did not care about their reactions. His only focus was finding Freya and proving her innocence. Colt started investigating the evidence against Freya. Using his knowledge of military systems and his experience with secret operations, he discovered that the accusations against her were completely fabricated. Someone had carefully planned everything to remove her, because she discovered information that could expose their entire organization. As Colt continued searching, he found another shocking truth. The technology being used by the enemy was connected to research from years ago, including projects related to his own mecha. This discovery forced Colt to question his entire past. He started wondering if the battles he fought were part of a larger plan. Maybe someone had created enemies just to push humanity toward developing stronger weapons. Maybe the war he dedicated his life to fighting was controlled by people who wanted endless conflict. These thoughts troubled Colt, But he knew he could not stop now. The truth was buried deep, and finding it was the only way to protect humanity and Freya. At the same time, the enemy prepared their strongest warrior. Unlike ordinary pilots, this new fighter had been created through extreme experiments. His body and mind were enhanced to synchronize perfectly with a powerful mecha. The enemy believed that this pilot was the only person capable of defeating Colt. When Colt received information about this new threat, he knew the real battle had finally begun. The previous attack was only a test. The enemy wanted to measure his abilities before sending their ultimate weapon. Colt looked at his mecha and remembered the promise he once made to himself. He promised that he would never return to war. He promised that he would forget the name Mecha King. But promises made in the past could not protect the people he loved in the present. Colt accepted that he could not run away forever. The world needed him again. But this time he was not fighting alone. He had Freya's trust, the truth on his side, and the experience of every battle he survived. As the enemy's strongest mecha approached, the sky filled with the sound of massive engines. The final battle between two legendary warriors was about to begin. The Mecha King had returned, but now he had to prove whether the legend was still powerful enough to save humanity. The battlefield became completely silent as Colt faced the enemy's strongest mecha. The massive machine stood in front of him like a giant monster, covered with advanced armor and powerful weapons that were far beyond anything Colt had seen before. Unlike the previous enemy units, this mecha was not controlled by an ordinary pilot. It was created through dangerous experiments, combining advanced technology with human enhancement. The enemy believed they had finally created the perfect warrior, someone who could defeat the legendary Mecha King once and for all. Inside his cockpit, Colt carefully studied the enemy machine. His years of experience allowed him to understand the opponent's movements even before the battle started. He knew that this fight would not be easy. The enemy had learned from his previous battles and created a machine specifically designed to counter his abilities. But Colt also knew something the enemy did not understand. A mecha was not powerful because of technology alone. The connection between the pilot and the machine was what truly decided the outcome of a battle. The enemy pilot attacked first. His mecha moved with unbelievable speed, launching powerful attacks that forced Colt to defend immediately. The impact of every strike shook Colt's machine, and the entire battlefield was filled with explosions. The soldiers watching the fight realized that this battle was completely different from anything they had seen before. These were not ordinary pilots fighting. They were two warriors representing completely different beliefs. The enemy pilot believed strength came from removing human weakness. He had been modified and trained to become the ultimate weapon. To him, emotions were unnecessary because they only made people weak. The organization behind him had convinced him that humanity could only survive by becoming stronger than nature itself. But Colt believed the opposite. Colt had spent years carrying pain, sadness, and regret. Those emotions had once been his greatest weakness, but now he understood they were also the reason he continued fighting. His memories of lost friends, his parents, and Freya gave him the strength to keep moving forward. He was not fighting because he wanted to be the strongest. He was fighting because he wanted to protect the people who mattered to him. As the battle continued, Colt started noticing something unusual about the enemy mecha. The machine was powerful, but the pilot was struggling to control it completely. The technology that enhanced the pilot's abilities was also damaging his body. The enemy had created a warrior with incredible power, but they had ignored the cost of that power. Colt realized that the organization behind the experiments did not care about the people they used. They only cared about creating weapons. Even their strongest soldiers were nothing more than tools in their plan. Meanwhile, inside the enemy facility, Freya continued searching for a way to escape. She discovered more information about the experiments and learned that many innocent people had been used in the creation of these enhanced pilots. The organization had hidden everything from the public, pretending their research was created to protect humanity. Freya felt anger and sadness as she read the files. She had always believed that technology could make the world better, but now she saw how the same technology could destroy lives when controlled by people without morals. She knew Colt was fighting outside, and she also knew the truth about his past. She understood why he had hidden his identity for so long. Behind the legendary name of the Mecha King was not just a hero, but a person who had suffered more than anyone knew. The battle between Colt and the enemy warrior reached its peak. The enemy launched a powerful final attack, using every ability his mecha possessed. The attack was so strong that even Colt's legendary machine was pushed back. For a moment, everyone believed that the Mecha King might finally lose. But Colt remembered all the moments that brought him to this point. He remembered his parents. He remembered the people who believed in him. He remembered Freya standing by him when he had nothing left. Those memories gave him the strength to continue. Instead of fighting with anger, Colt controlled his emotions and focused completely. His connection with his mecha became stronger than ever. The machine responded to his determination, unlocking hidden abilities that had remained unused for years. The enemy was shocked. He could not understand how Colt's mecha became stronger without any artificial enhancement. He believed emotions were weaknesses, but Colt proved that human emotions could create a power that technology could never replace. With one final attack, Colt defeated the enemy mecha. The massive machine collapsed, and the battlefield became quiet again. The soldiers watched in disbelief as the legendary warrior stood victorious once more. However, Colt did not celebrate. He knew the battle was only a small part of a much bigger war. The organization behind the attack was still active, and they would not stop until they achieved their goal. After returning to the facility, Colt finally met Freya again. For a moment, neither of them said anything. After everything that happened, words felt unnecessary. Freya was relieved to see him alive, and Colt was grateful that she had survived. Freya asked him why he came back after spending so many years hiding. Colt remained silent for a moment before answering that he thought he could escape his past, but he realized that running away would never protect the people he cared about. Freya understood his feelings. She knew that Colt was not returning because he wanted to become a hero again. He returned because he finally accepted who he truly was. But before they could relax, a new message arrived from the enemy organization. The message revealed that the attack was only the beginning. The real plan had not even started yet. A much larger threat was approaching, one that could destroy not only the mecha system but the entire human civilization. Colt looked toward the battlefield where his mecha was standing. He knew the peaceful life he wanted was gone forever. The world had once again called the Mecha King back. And this time the enemy was preparing a war unlike anything humanity had ever seen. After the battle with the enemy's strongest mecha, everyone inside the research facility started seeing Colt differently. The man they once ignored and considered an ordinary janitor was now recognized as the legendary Mecha King. The truth that had been hidden for years was finally revealed. The soldiers, engineers, and pilots who had worked beside Colt every day could not believe that they had been standing next to the greatest warrior in human history without knowing his real identity. However, Colt did not care about the attention or the respect he suddenly received. He had never returned because he wanted people to praise him. His only reason for coming back was Freya and the danger threatening humanity. He knew that the enemy organization was far more powerful than anyone realized. And the attack they had just survived was only the beginning of a much larger plan. Inside the command center, military leaders gathered to discuss the situation. They analyzed the enemy's technology and realized something terrifying. The machines they fought were not normal weapons. They were part of a secret project that had been developing for years. The enemy had been collecting advanced mecha technology, experimenting on pilots, and preparing for a war that nobody knew was coming. Many officials wanted Colt to immediately return as the official leader of the mecha forces. They believed that if the Mecha King was back, humanity finally had a chance to survive. But Colt refused to accept the title again. He explained that becoming a symbol was not important. What mattered was discovering the truth behind the enemy's plan and stopping them before more people were hurt. Freya also returned to the research facility after being cleared from the false accusations. Everyone welcomed her back, but she was no longer the same person. The experience had changed her. She had seen how easily powerful people could misuse technology and destroy innocent lives. She decided that she would no longer only create mecha systems. She would fight to make sure those systems were never used for evil purposes again. Together, Colt and Freya started investigating the hidden organization behind the conspiracy. Using the information Freya discovered and Colt's knowledge of military operations, they followed the clues left behind by the enemy. They found connections between different attacks that had happened over the years. What seemed like random incidents were actually carefully planned steps toward a final goal. During their investigation, they discovered information about an ancient mecha project that had been classified for decades. This project was believed to be the origin of the most powerful mecha technology ever created. According to the records, the machine was designed to protect humanity during the greatest crisis imaginable. But the project was abandoned after something terrible happened. The original pilots who tested the technology lost control because the machine was too powerful. The military feared that such a weapon could destroy more than it could protect, so they sealed the project and erased it from official history. Colt was shocked when he discovered that his own legendary mecha was connected to this forgotten project. Suddenly, many questions from his past started making sense. The reason he was able to synchronize with the machine better than anyone else was not just because of his skills. There was something special about the connection between him and the technology. But before Colt could uncover the complete truth, the enemy launched another attack. This time they did not attack with only mechas. They attacked the information network of the entire world. Communication systems failed, military databases were destroyed, and cities began losing control of their defense systems. The enemy wanted to create chaos before launching their final operation. They knew that if humanity was divided and confused, nobody would be able to stop them. The military tried to respond, but they were overwhelmed. The enemy had planned every move carefully. Their goal was not just to defeat human forces. They wanted to control all mecha technology and become the only power capable of protecting the world. As the situation became more dangerous, Colt realized that fighting alone would not be enough. In the past, he had carried every responsibility on his shoulders. He believed that being the strongest meant protecting everyone by himself. But after everything he experienced, he understood that true strength came from trusting others. He began training the new generation of mecha pilots. Many of them were young and inexperienced, but they had the determination to protect humanity. At first, some of them doubted themselves because they compared their abilities to the legendary Mecha King. Colt reminded them that every great warrior started as someone who was afraid. He told them that courage was not the absence of fear. Courage was choosing to fight even when fear existed. Meanwhile, Freya worked on improving the mecha synchronization system. She believed that the biggest mistake of the enemy was trying to remove human emotions from their pilots. She wanted to create a system that worked with human feelings instead of fighting against them. Her research created a new possibility. Instead of forcing pilots to control machines through artificial enhancements, they could build a stronger connection through trust and understanding. But the enemy was also preparing. The organization revealed their ultimate weapon, a massive mecha unlike anything humanity had ever seen. It was powered by the same technology that had once been considered too dangerous. Their leader believed that with this machine, they could decide the future of the entire planet. When Colt saw the images of the enemy's final weapon, he realized that the coming battle would be the biggest challenge of his life. This was no longer just about saving Freya. It was no longer just about proving the Mecha King was still powerful. This was about protecting the future of humanity. Colt looked at his mecha one more time and prepared for the final war ahead. He knew there was a possibility that he might not return. He knew the enemy was stronger than ever before. But for the first time in years, Colt was not running away from his destiny. The legendary warrior had finally accepted who he was. And the greatest battle in human history was about to begin. As news of the enemy's ultimate weapon spread across military headquarters around the world, fear began growing among humanity's leaders. The images captured by reconnaissance drones showed a gigantic mecha unlike anything ever built before. It was nearly twice the size of standard combat units, and possessed enough firepower to destroy entire cities within minutes. More terrifying than its size was the technology powering it. The machine was built using the forbidden research that had been sealed decades ago. The same technology that many scientists once believed could either save humanity or wipe it out completely. The enemy organization had somehow recovered the lost data and spent years secretly completing the project. Now their masterpiece was finally ready for war. Inside the research facility, emergency meetings continued day and night. Military commanders debated possible strategies, but every simulation ended the same way. Humanity's forces suffered catastrophic losses. Even the most advanced mechas currently available could not match the power of the enemy's new machine. For the first time in years, many leaders openly admitted that humanity might lose. The atmosphere inside the command center became heavier with every passing hour. Some officers suggested retreating and focusing on defending major cities, while others wanted to launch a desperate attack before the enemy became even stronger. Nobody could agree on a solution. Colt remained silent throughout most of these discussions. He listened carefully while studying every piece of information available about the enemy weapon. Deep inside, he knew this battle would be unlike any he had fought before. Throughout his career as the Mecha King, he had defeated powerful enemies, survived impossible missions, and faced overwhelming odds. But this situation felt different. The enemy was no longer hiding in the shadows. They were preparing to openly challenge humanity and reshape the world according to their vision. Later that evening, Colt stood alone inside the massive hangar where his legendary mecha rested. The machine had carried him through countless battles, and despite its age, it remained one of the most powerful weapons ever created. He slowly walked around it, remembering the victories and tragedies connected to its metal frame. Every scar on the armor told a story. Every repaired section represented a battle where he barely survived. Looking at the machine felt like looking into his own past. Freya eventually joined him in the hangar. For a few moments, neither of them spoke. They simply stood there in silence, understanding the weight of what was coming. Finally, Freya broke the silence and asked whether he was afraid. Colt smiled slightly before admitting the truth. Yes, he was afraid. Not because he might lose his life, but because he was afraid of failing the people depending on him. Years ago, he believed strength alone could solve every problem. But after losing so much, he understood that even the strongest warrior could not protect everyone. Freya stepped closer and reminded him that he was no longer alone. In the past, he carried every burden by himself, but now there were people willing to fight beside him. Hearing those words brought Colt a sense of comfort he had not felt in years. Perhaps true strength was not about carrying everything alone. Perhaps it was about trusting others enough to share the burden. Meanwhile, the young pilots Colt had been training continued preparing for battle. Inspired by his leadership, they pushed themselves harder than ever before. Some of them still lacked experience, but their determination grew stronger every day. Colt spent hours teaching them not only combat techniques but also the mindset needed to survive war. He explained that a pilot's greatest weapon was not the mecha itself, but the willpower inside the person controlling it. Machines could be damaged or destroyed, but courage and determination could never be taken away. As preparations continued, new intelligence arrived from enemy territory. Scouts discovered that the organization was building an enormous fortress hidden deep inside a remote region. The structure served as both a manufacturing center and command base. More importantly, it was where the ultimate weapon was being prepared for deployment. If humanity wanted any chance of stopping the enemy, they needed to strike before the machine became fully operational. A dangerous mission was immediately organized. A small team would infiltrate enemy territory, gather intelligence, and locate weaknesses inside the fortress. Naturally, Colt volunteered to lead the operation. Although many commanders objected, arguing that humanity could not risk losing the Mecha King, Colt insisted. He knew the enemy better than anyone else, and time was running out. The mission began under the cover of darkness. Accompanied by several elite pilots and support personnel, Colt entered hostile territory. The journey was extremely dangerous. Enemy patrols were everywhere, and advanced surveillance systems covered the region. Several times the team narrowly avoided detection. The deeper they traveled, the more evidence they found of the enemy's growing power. Entire factories were producing weapons around the clock, while experimental facilities continued creating enhanced soldiers. Eventually, the team reached a hidden observation point overlooking the fortress. What they saw left everyone speechless. The enemy base was far larger than expected. Massive defensive walls surrounded the complex, while countless mechas patrolled the area. At the center stood the ultimate weapon itself. Even from a distance, its enormous size was intimidating. While studying the fortress, Colt noticed something unusual. Certain sections of the structure matched designs from the classified project he had recently discovered. Suddenly, a disturbing realization struck him. The enemy's machine was not simply based on forbidden technology. It was directly connected to the original project that created his own mecha. That meant there was a hidden link between Colt, the enemy weapon, and the secrets buried in humanity's past. Before he could investigate further, alarms suddenly echoed throughout the fortress. Somehow, the enemy had detected their presence. Within seconds, searchlights illuminated the area, and dozens of enemy units moved toward their position. The infiltration mission had turned into a fight for survival. As explosions erupted around them, Colt climbed into his mecha and prepared for another battle. But this time he knew the truth was closer than ever before. And the secrets waiting inside the enemy fortress were about to change everything he believed about his past, his destiny, and the future of humanity. The moment the enemy fortress detected Colt and his team, the entire area turned into a battlefield. Warning alarms echoed throughout the massive complex, and hundreds of enemy soldiers rushed toward their location. The infiltration mission that was supposed to be a secret operation had suddenly become a direct confrontation. Colt knew they had lost the element of surprise, but there was no time to retreat. The information hidden inside the fortress was too important, and if they escaped without discovering the truth, humanity might lose its only chance of stopping the enemy. Colt immediately activated his legendary mecha and prepared for combat. The machine that had once been considered a symbol of hope awakened again, its powerful systems coming online one by one. The younger pilots who accompanied him watched in amazement as the Mecha King entered the battlefield. Even though they had trained with him, seeing his true power in action was still unbelievable. The enemy forces attacked from every direction. Their mechas moved quickly through the battlefield, trying to surround Colt and his team. But Colt's experience allowed him to predict their movements. He guided his team through the chaos, giving commands and creating openings for them to escape. Unlike the past, where he fought alone, Colt now understood the importance of teamwork. Every pilot had a role, and together they became much stronger. As the battle continued, Colt noticed something strange. The enemy soldiers were not fighting with the same confidence they had shown before. They were following orders without question, almost like they were controlled. This reminded Colt of the enhanced pilots created through illegal experiments. The enemy organization was not only creating stronger machines, they were creating soldiers who could be completely controlled. Meanwhile, inside the enemy fortress, the leader of the organization watched the battle from the command room. He was not surprised to see Colt fighting. In fact, he had expected this moment for years. The leader revealed that Colt's return was part of a plan that had been prepared long ago. He believed that bringing the Mecha King back into battle would help him complete the final stage of his project. This revelation shocked Colt when he later discovered the hidden message left inside the fortress system. The enemy leader knew about Colt's past, his abilities, and even the reason why he disappeared from the battlefield. Someone had been watching him for years. As Colt moved deeper into the fortress, he discovered a secret laboratory hidden beneath the main structure. The place contained countless files, machines, and research records. Freya, who was supporting the mission remotely, helped analyze the information. What they found completely changed their understanding of history. The original Mecha project was not abandoned because of technical failure. It was abandoned because the creators discovered something dangerous about the technology. The mechas were designed to connect with the human mind at a deeper level than anyone expected. The machines did not simply follow commands. They responded to the emotions, memories, and determination of the pilots controlling them. The strongest pilots were not those with the most physical ability, but those who had the strongest connection between their heart and mind. This explained why Colt had always been different. His bond with his mecha was unlike anyone else's. The machine responded to his emotions because he accepted both his pain and his humanity. But the enemy organization believed this was a weakness. They wanted to remove emotions completely and create perfect warriors who would never hesitate. They believed that feelings caused mistakes, and the only way to create true power was to eliminate human weakness. Colt realized that the enemy had misunderstood the very thing that made humans strong. While exploring the laboratory, the team found records about another pilot. Someone who had been part of the original experiments and was considered the first successful enhanced warrior. According to the files, this pilot disappeared years ago after losing control of his power. Colt was shocked when he saw the identity of this person. It was someone connected to his own past. someone he thought was gone forever. Before Colt could understand the full truth, the enemy appeared. The mysterious pilot from the record stepped forward, wearing an advanced combat suit and controlling a powerful mecha. He revealed that he had survived and had been working with the organization all this time. He told Colt that they were not so different. Both of them had been chosen because they possessed extraordinary abilities. The difference was that Colt chose to protect humanity, while he chose to evolve beyond it. The enemy pilot believed that humans were too fragile. He believed wars, emotions, and suffering would continue forever, unless someone took control and created a perfect world. In his mind, the enemy organization was not destroying humanity. They were saving it by forcing evolution. Colt disagreed completely. He believed a world without freedom, emotions, and choice was not a world worth protecting. Humanity's imperfections were exactly what made people valuable. Their conversation ended when the enemy launched an attack. The battle between the two warriors became one of the most intense fights Colt had ever experienced. Their mechas moved at incredible speed, creating massive shockwaves throughout the fortress. Every attack carried years of history and opposing beliefs. Unlike previous battles, Colt struggled because his opponent understood his fighting style. The enemy knew his techniques, his weaknesses, and even his emotional patterns. It felt like fighting against a reflection of himself. As the battle reached its peak, the fortress began collapsing around them. The enemy's ultimate weapon was almost ready for activation, and time was running out. Colt had to make a choice. Continue fighting his old enemy or stop the activation of the machine that could destroy the world. He decided to trust his team. While Colt continued holding back the enemy pilot, the other members of his team entered the control center to stop the final activation. For the first time, Colt was not carrying the entire responsibility alone. The plan worked, but not completely. The enemy managed to activate a part of the ultimate weapon before the system was destroyed. A massive energy wave spread across the battlefield, shaking the entire fortress. Everyone realized that they had only delayed the enemy, not defeated them. As Colt looked at the enormous weapon awakening in the distance, he understood that the real battle had finally begun. The enemy had revealed its true power, and now humanity's final hope depended on the return of the legendary Mecha King. The activation of the enemy's ultimate weapon changed everything. The energy released from the massive mecha spread across the battlefield like a storm, forcing everyone to stop and witness the terrifying power that had been hidden for years. The fortress shook violently, and warning systems started failing one after another. The enemy organization had finally achieved what they had been working toward for so long. They had created a weapon powerful enough to challenge the entire world. Colt looked at the enormous machine standing in front of him and felt something he had not felt in years. It was not fear, but a deep realization that this battle was much bigger than he expected. The enemy was not just trying to win a war. They were trying to replace the future of humanity with their own vision. If they succeeded, people would lose their freedom, their choices, and everything that made them human. Inside the control room, Freya and the other engineers desperately tried to analyze the enemy weapon. They discovered that the machine was connected to a global energy network. Once fully activated, it could control other mechas around the world and turn them into weapons under the enemy's command. The organization wanted to take control of every defense system and force humanity to surrender. Freya immediately informed Colt about the discovery. She warned him that destroying the machine directly might not be enough. If the core system was damaged incorrectly, it could create an explosion powerful enough to destroy nearby cities. They needed another way to stop it. Colt understood the difficulty of the situation. In the past, he would have rushed forward and tried to destroy the enemy alone. But now he knew that reckless courage was not enough. He needed a real plan, and he needed to trust the people fighting beside him. The remaining pilots gathered around Colt. Many of them were exhausted and afraid after seeing the enemy's true power, but none of them wanted to give up. They had seen Colt fight, and his determination inspired them. The man they once saw as a legend was now standing beside them as a leader. Colt told them that the enemy's greatest mistake was believing that power came only from technology. They created stronger machines and stronger warriors, but they forgot something important. A person's will could never be programmed or controlled. The strength of humanity came from people standing together. With a new strategy, Colt and his team prepared for their next move. Their plan was dangerous. They would divide their forces into two groups. One team would attack the enemy weapon from the outside and distract its defenses, while Colt would enter the core system and attempt to shut it down from within. Everyone knew the risks. The closer Colt got to the machine, the more dangerous it would become. The enemy weapon was connected directly to the pilot controlling it, meaning Colt would have to face not only a physical battle, but also a mental one. Before leaving, Freya met Colt privately. She knew this mission could be his most dangerous battle. She asked him if he regretted returning to the battlefield after spending years trying to escape it. Colt thought for a moment before answering. He admitted that he once believed his past was something he needed to forget. He thought becoming an ordinary person would allow him to finally find peace. But now he understood that his experiences, his pain, and even his mistakes had shaped who he was. He was not returning because he was trapped by his past. He was returning because he finally accepted himself. Freya smiled and reminded him that he did not have to fight as the lonely Mecha King anymore. He had people who believed in him now. With those words, Colt entered his mecha and prepared for the final assault. The battle began immediately. The enemy forces surrounded Colt's team, sending wave after wave of powerful mechas. The young pilots fought bravely, using everything they had learned. They were no longer inexperienced soldiers. Under Colt's guidance, they had become true warriors. Meanwhile, Colt moved directly toward the enemy's ultimate weapon. The closer he got, the stronger the machine became. Its defensive systems activated, creating powerful barriers that blocked his attacks. The enemy pilot inside the machine appeared through the communication system and laughed. He told Colt that he still did not understand the truth. He believed Colt was fighting because of emotional attachments, while he had abandoned emotions to achieve perfection. But Colt replied that emotions were exactly why he was stronger. He remembered every person who had supported him, every life he had protected, and every sacrifice that brought him here. Those memories were not weaknesses. They were the reason he refused to lose. The two legendary warriors began their final confrontation. Their mechas collided with incredible force, creating explosions that shook the battlefield. The enemy used the full power of the ultimate weapon, while Colt pushed his own mecha beyond its limits. For a moment, it seemed impossible for Colt to win. The enemy machine was simply too powerful. But then something unexpected happened. Colt's mecha began responding differently. The connection between pilot and machine reached a level never achieved before. The system recognized Colt's determination and unlocked hidden abilities that had remained sealed for years. Freya realized what was happening. The mecha was not responding to power. It was responding to Colt's humanity. The same thing the enemy considered a weakness had become Colt's greatest advantage. With this new power, Colt managed to break through the enemy defenses. But before he could finish the battle, the enemy revealed one final secret. The ultimate weapon was not just a machine. It was connected to something much larger. A hidden system that had been waiting for activation. Colt realized that destroying the weapon would not end the war. The true enemy was still hiding behind everything. As the battlefield began collapsing, Colt faced an impossible decision. He could destroy the enemy machine immediately, but doing so might cause massive destruction. Or he could enter the deepest part of the system and risk everything to stop the entire operation. Without hesitation, Colt chose the second option. The Mecha King entered the heart of the enemy weapon, and what he discovered inside would reveal the biggest secret behind the entire war. As Colt entered the deepest part of the enemy's ultimate weapon, he felt like he was entering another world. The inside of the machine was not like a normal mecha system. Instead of simple technology and controls, it was filled with a complex network of energy, memories, and artificial intelligence. The machine was not only built to fight battles. It was designed to connect directly with the mind of its pilot and control every decision through a powerful neural system. Colt slowly realized that the enemy had created something far more dangerous than a simple weapon. They had created a system that could influence the human mind itself. The organization's true goal was not just controlling mechas. Their plan was to create a world where every soldier, every machine, and eventually every human could be connected to one central system. The deeper Colt moved into the core, the more memories appeared around him. The machine was showing him images from the past, including moments from his own life. He saw battles he had fought, people he had lost, and decisions that had changed his entire journey. At first, Colt believed these were only memories stored inside the system, but then he realized something much more disturbing. The enemy had collected data about him for years. They had studied his battles, analyzed his fighting style, and even recorded his emotional reactions. The reason they understood him so well was because they had been watching him since the beginning of his career as the Mecha King. Colt became angry when he discovered the truth. The enemy organization had been manipulating events from the shadows, creating conflicts and gathering information from every battle. They were not simply reacting to wars. They were creating situations that allowed them to improve their technology. The legendary hero who had spent years protecting humanity suddenly realized that many of the battles he fought might have been part of someone else's plan. Meanwhile, outside the weapon, Freya and the team continued fighting to protect Colt. The enemy forces had increased their attacks, trying to stop anyone from interfering with the final activation. The young pilots fought with everything they had, proving that they had grown from inexperienced warriors into true defenders of humanity. Freya monitored Colt's condition through the system. She noticed that his connection with the enemy machine was becoming dangerous. The neural link was affecting his mind, forcing him to experience painful memories again and again. She feared that Colt might lose himself inside the system. She tried contacting him, telling him to disconnect before it was too late. But Colt refused. He knew that if he escaped now, the enemy would continue their plan. He had spent years running away from his past, but this time he decided to face everything that haunted him. Inside the system, Colt encountered the enemy leader for the first time. The mysterious figure appeared as a digital projection and revealed the complete truth behind the organization. The leader explained that he once believed humanity was worth saving, but after witnessing endless wars and suffering, he lost faith in people. He believed humans were controlled by emotions, and emotions created conflict. Love, anger, fear, and ambition caused people to fight each other. His solution was simple: remove human weakness and create a perfect controlled society. He believed the mecha system was the key to achieving this. By connecting every human mind to the central system, he could eliminate conflict forever. Colt listened carefully but rejected his idea. He told him that a world without choice was not peace. It was only another form of control. Humans were not perfect, but their ability to make choices, learn from mistakes, and care for each other was what made them valuable. The enemy leader laughed and told Colt that his emotions were the reason he would lose. He believed that no matter how strong Colt was, he would always be limited by his humanity. Then the system launched its final attack. The machine created a virtual battlefield inside Colt's mind. He found himself facing illusions of his past. He saw the moments where he failed, the people he could not save, and the pain he tried to forget. The system was trying to break his will by forcing him to relive his greatest regrets. For a moment, Colt felt the same hopelessness he felt years ago. He remembered why he abandoned the Mecha King identity. He remembered the loneliness. He remembered the pain. But then he heard Freya's voice. She reminded him that his past did not define him. The mistakes and losses he experienced were not proof that he was weak. They were proof that he cared. Colt finally understood something important. The enemy was wrong. Human emotions were not weaknesses. They were the source of strength. Because people cared about others, they had a reason to fight. Because they experienced loss, they understood the value of protecting life. Because they felt pain, they could understand each other. With this realization, Colt broke through the system's control. The enemy leader was shocked. He could not understand how Colt resisted technology designed to control the human mind. The answer was simple. Colt was not fighting against his emotions anymore. He accepted them. The connection between Colt and his mecha reached its highest level. The machine responded completely to his will, creating a power that even the enemy could not predict. Outside, Freya noticed the change immediately. The energy readings from Colt's mecha were unlike anything recorded before. She realized that Colt had achieved something nobody else ever could: a perfect connection between human and machine. But before Colt could shut down the enemy system, the leader activated one final emergency protocol. The entire weapon began transforming, revealing its true form. The machine was not only a weapon, it was a gateway to a larger system hidden beyond Earth. The enemy had prepared for a future invasion, and this weapon was only the beginning. Colt stared at the massive transformation happening around him and understood the terrifying truth. The war they were fighting was not the final battle. It was only the first chapter of something much bigger. And now, the future of humanity depended on whether the Mecha King could stop a threat that had been waiting for humanity all along. The transformation of the enemy's ultimate weapon shocked everyone watching the battlefield. The machine that they believed was already at its final stage revealed a hidden form that was far more powerful than anyone imagined. The massive structure changed shape, releasing waves of energy that spread across the sky. Every mecha on the battlefield began losing control as the enemy system attempted to connect with them. The organization's final plan had been activated, and humanity was closer to losing control than ever before. Inside the core of the machine, Colt stood facing the true power of the enemy. He finally understood the scale of the plan. The weapon was never created only to destroy cities or defeat armies. It was designed to become the center of a new world order. Once activated completely, it would connect with every advanced mecha system on the planet and allow the enemy to control all military technology. The enemy leader believed this was the next step of human evolution. He believed that wars happen because people had different thoughts, emotions, and desires. By connecting everyone through one system, he wanted to remove disagreement and create a world without conflict. But Colt saw the truth. A world where nobody could choose for themselves was not peace. It was a prison. Colt prepared to fight again. But this time the battle was not just between two mechas. It was a battle between two completely different beliefs about humanity's future. The enemy leader activated his strongest attack. The entire system inside the machine began attacking Colt's mind again, showing him painful memories from his past. He saw the day he lost his parents, the battles where he failed to save everyone, and the moment he decided to abandon his identity as the Mecha King. The system tried to convince him that all his suffering happened because he was human. It showed him every mistake and every regret, trying to make him believe that emotions only brought pain. For a moment, Colt felt himself falling back into the darkness he had escaped years ago. He remembered the loneliness. He remembered believing that leaving everything behind was the only way to survive. But then he remembered something else. He remembered Freya saving him when he had lost hope. He remembered the people who believed in him. He remembered the young pilots who followed him because they trusted him. Colt realized that his pain was not something he needed to erase. His past was proof that he had lived, fought, and cared about others. Every loss had shaped him into the person he was today. Instead of rejecting his memories, Colt accepted them. The enemy system could not understand this. It was designed to break people by using their emotions against them. But Colt had learned to live with his emotions instead of fighting them. The connection between Colt and his mecha reached a completely new level. The machine responded to his heart, his determination, and his memories. The energy surrounding the mecha changed, creating a power that was never achieved by artificial experiments. Outside the core, Freya watched the readings carefully. She realized that Colt had discovered what the original mecha creators had always wanted. The perfect connection between human and machine was never about removing emotions. It was about understanding them. Freya quickly shared this discovery with the other pilots. She explained that their greatest advantage was not stronger weapons or more advanced technology. Their strength came from their humanity. Inspired by Colt, the remaining pilots pushed forward. They stopped fighting like simple soldiers following orders and started fighting with their own purpose. They protected each other, supported each other, and created a connection that the enemy system could never control. The battlefield slowly began changing. The enemy forces that once seemed unstoppable started losing control. Their machines were powerful, but they lacked the human connection that gave Colt and his team their strength. Meanwhile, inside the enemy weapon, Colt finally reached the central control system. He found the source of the entire operation and prepared to destroy it. But before he could complete the process, the enemy leader appeared again. This time, the leader revealed another shocking secret. He explained that the organization had not created the system only because of their beliefs. They had discovered something beyond Earth years ago. A powerful unknown force was approaching humanity, and they believed the only way to survive was to evolve into something stronger. According to him, the coming threat was too powerful for normal humans to defeat. That was why he created enhanced warriors. That was why he created the ultimate mecha. He believed he was preparing humanity for survival. Colt understood that the enemy leader was not completely motivated by evil. He was someone who had seen the dangers of the universe and became convinced that control was the only solution. But Colt still refused to accept his methods. He told him that protecting humanity by taking away its freedom was no different from destroying it. The enemy leader became furious and launched his final attack. The two mechas collided inside the core of the weapon, creating a battle unlike anything before. Every strike represented their beliefs. One side wanted a perfect world without choice, while the other fought for a flawed world where people could decide their own future. The fight pushed both machines beyond their limits. Colt's mecha started suffering damage, and the system warned him that continuing could destroy the machine completely. But Colt refused to stop. He knew that if he gave up now, everything he fought for would disappear. With the help of Freya and his team, Colt found a weakness in the enemy system. The machine was powerful because it controlled everything through one central network. But that same connection became its weakness. Colt redirected the energy back into the system, forcing it to collapse from within. The enemy leader realized too late that Colt had defeated him not with greater power, but with a better understanding of humanity. As the ultimate weapon began shutting down, everyone believed the war was finally over. But then a final message appeared on the screen. A warning from the unknown system beyond Earth. The message revealed that the activation of the weapon had sent a signal into space. Something had heard it. Something was coming. Colt looked at the message in silence. The enemy's plan had been stopped, but they had unknowingly opened the door to a much greater danger. The Mecha King had saved humanity once again. But the real battle was only beginning. After the enemy's ultimate weapon began shutting down, everyone on the battlefield believed that the nightmare was finally coming to an end. The massive machine that had threatened the future of humanity slowly lost its power, and the enemy forces started retreating. Soldiers, pilots, and engineers watched in silence as the legendary Mecha King once again achieved what many thought was impossible. But inside his cockpit, Colt did not feel like a winner. He stared at the warning messages appearing across his screen and thought about the final message they discovered before the system collapsed. The signal sent into space was not just an accident. The enemy's weapon had awakened something that had been waiting far beyond Earth. The war they had just survived was only the beginning of a much larger conflict. Colt knew he could not tell everyone the truth immediately. Humanity had already suffered enough fear and destruction. If people learned that another unknown threat was approaching, panic would spread around the world. For now they needed time to prepare. When Colt returned to the research facility, everyone welcomed him as a hero. The same people who once ignored him now looked at him with respect and admiration. They finally understood that the quiet janitor who walked through the halls every day was the person who had protected humanity more than once. But Colt remained the same person. He did not want a celebration or a title. He simply wanted to make sure that the people he cared about were safe. Freya noticed that something was troubling him. She knew Colt well enough to understand that even though he saved everyone, he was carrying a new burden inside his heart. She asked him what happened inside the enemy system and why he looked so worried. After a long silence, Colt told her about the message from space. Freya was shocked. She immediately understood the danger. The enemy organization had believed they were preparing humanity for survival, but instead they had sent a signal that could attract something unknown toward Earth. Their attempt to protect humanity might have created an even greater threat. Together, Colt and Freya decided to keep investigating. They returned to the hidden records of the original Mecha project and searched for information about the signal. The deeper they looked, the more secrets they discovered. The original creators of the Mecha technology had actually known about the possibility of a future invasion. Years ago, they detected strange signals coming from deep space. They believed an advanced civilization existed somewhere beyond Earth, one with technology far beyond human understanding. The creators tried to prepare humanity by developing powerful mechas. But they also knew that technology alone would never be enough. That was why they designed the connection system between humans and machines. They believed that the future of humanity would depend on people who could combine advanced technology with human emotions. Colt finally understood why his mecha always responded differently to him. He was not chosen because he was the strongest fighter. He was chosen because he represented the balance between power and humanity. Meanwhile, the world began rebuilding after the destruction caused by the enemy organization. Many people celebrated the end of the war. But behind the scenes, governments started preparing for the unknown threat approaching Earth. New defense systems were created, and mecha production increased. However, this time the goal was different. The focus was no longer creating weapons of destruction. It was creating protection. Colt began training a new generation of pilots. These young warriors came from different backgrounds, but they shared one thing. They wanted to protect their world. Colt taught them everything he had learned throughout his years of battle. He taught them how to control their mechas. He taught them how to survive dangerous missions. But most importantly, he taught them that a true warrior does not fight because they hate the enemy. A true warrior fights because they want to protect something valuable. The new pilots slowly developed their own connections with their machines. Unlike the enemy experiments, they were not forced or controlled. Their power came from trust and understanding. Freya continued improving the mecha systems. She created new technology that allowed pilots to communicate with their machines more naturally. Her goal was to make sure that no future warrior would suffer the same pain Colt experienced. However, as months passed, strange events started happening around Earth. Unexplained energy signals appeared in different locations. Ancient machines that had been inactive for decades suddenly activated. And mysterious objects began entering Earth's atmosphere. Everyone realized that the warning from space was becoming reality. The unknown enemy was coming closer. One night, Colt stood outside the facility looking at the stars. For years, he had believed his battles were behind him. He thought he had escaped the life of war and found peace. But now he understood something. The reason he became the Mecha King was not because he was destined to fight forever. It was because he had the ability to protect people when they needed him. Freya joined him and asked if he was ready for another battle. Colt smiled and answered that he was no longer fighting alone. The next morning, the entire world received a message. A massive object had entered Earth's orbit. It was not a meteor. It was not a natural object. It was a machine. A gigantic alien mecha unlike anything humanity had ever seen. The world watched in fear as the unknown machine slowly approached Earth. The new enemy had arrived. And this time, humanity was facing an opponent from beyond the stars. Colt entered his mecha once again and prepared for the battle ahead. The legend of the Mecha King was not finished yet. The greatest war in human history was about to begin. The arrival of the mysterious alien mecha changed the entire situation on Earth. The people who had just started rebuilding their lives after the previous war were suddenly faced with a new and unknown danger. Unlike the machines created by humans, this alien mecha was something completely different. Its design was far beyond human technology, and the energy coming from it was so powerful that scientists around the world struggled to understand how such a machine could even exist. Inside the research facility, alarms continued ringing as the alien machine entered Earth's atmosphere. Military forces from different countries prepared their defenses, but everyone knew the truth. Their current technology was nowhere near the level of the machine approaching them. The same fear that humanity felt years ago returned once again. Colt stood in front of his legendary mecha, watching the alien machine through the control screen. For the first time in many years, he felt like he was facing something completely unknown. Every enemy he fought before had been connected to human technology, human ambition, and human mistakes. But this time, the enemy came from somewhere beyond Earth. Freya and the scientists studied the alien mecha carefully. They discovered that the machine was not simply a weapon. It was a highly advanced system that appeared to be searching for something. The energy signals it released were similar to the signal created by the enemy's ultimate weapon. This discovery shocked everyone. The previous enemy had not only activated a dangerous system, they had called something toward Earth. The world leaders wanted to attack immediately, believing the alien mecha was a threat. But Colt disagreed. His experience taught him that attacking without understanding the enemy could lead to disaster. He believed there was a reason the machine came to Earth, and destroying it without knowing the truth could make things worse. Many commanders questioned Colt's decision. They remembered him as a powerful warrior, not a diplomat. But Freya supported him. She understood that Colt was no longer the same person who only knew how to fight. He had learned to think, to understand, and to see beyond simple battles. Colt attempted to communicate with the alien mecha. First, there was no response. The machine remained silent, floating above Earth like an unstoppable force. Then suddenly a signal appeared. A voice came through the communication system. Everyone was shocked because the message was not from a machine. It was from a living being. The alien pilot revealed that he had not come to destroy Earth. He had come because of the signal created by the forbidden mecha technology. The activation had sent a message across the universe, alerting powerful forces that humanity had discovered technology they were not ready to control. The alien pilot explained that many civilizations had fallen because they tried to use advanced technology without understanding its true purpose. The mecha systems were not created only for war. They were created as a bridge between different forms of life. Colt listened carefully and realized that the human enemy organization had misunderstood everything. They wanted to control the technology, but the original purpose was connection and cooperation. However, the alien pilot warned them that the danger was real. The signal had reached another force, an ancient enemy that had been searching for powerful energy sources across the universe. A civilization known as the Void Warriors. The Void Warriors were not interested in negotiation. They believed weaker civilizations should either serve them or be destroyed. They had already conquered countless worlds, and now Earth had become their next target. The alien pilot explained that the ultimate weapon created by humans had revealed Earth's location. Humanity had accidentally invited its greatest enemy. The news created panic around the world. People realized that the previous wars were nothing compared to what was coming. They had spent years fighting among themselves while a much greater threat was approaching from space. Colt understood the situation immediately. Humanity could not survive if everyone continued fighting separately. The old conflicts between countries had to end. The new enemy was too powerful for one group to face alone. With Freya's help, Colt began creating a new global mecha alliance. Instead of different nations building separate weapons, they started sharing technology and information. The goal was no longer competition. It was survival. The young pilots who trained under Colt became the foundation of this new defense force. They were no longer just soldiers. They represented the future of humanity. As preparations continued, Colt also worked with the alien pilot to understand the enemy's technology. The alien mecha was far more advanced than anything humans had created, but Colt noticed something interesting. The alien machine also required a connection with its pilot. Just like human mechas, this proved that despite being from different worlds, both civilizations shared something important: the bond between a pilot and a machine. Freya discovered that the human mecha system could evolve by combining knowledge from both civilizations. Together, they created a new generation of mechas that were stronger, faster, and more adaptable. But time was running out. The Void Warriors had already detected Earth's location. Massive enemy ships appeared at the edge of the solar system. The sky that once represented hope now became a symbol of the coming war. Colt looked at the approaching fleet and knew that this would be his greatest challenge. He had fought enemies on Earth. He had fought against betrayal. He had fought against his own past. Now he had to fight for the survival of an entire planet. The Mecha King entered his machine and prepared for the final battle. But this time he was not fighting alone. Humanity stood together. And the battle for Earth was about to begin. The arrival of the Void Warriors fleet marked the beginning of the greatest battle humanity had ever faced. The peaceful days were completely gone, and every person on Earth understood that the future of their planet depended on this war. For the first time in history, humanity was united under one goal. Countries that once fought against each other now shared resources, technology, and soldiers, because they finally understood that survival was more important than old conflicts. Inside the newly created Global Mecha headquarters, preparations moved faster than ever. Scientists worked day and night to complete the new generation of mechas created from human and alien technology. These machines were more powerful than anything humanity had built before, but everyone knew that technology alone would not guarantee victory. The Void Warriors were not just another enemy. They were a civilization that had conquered countless planets. Their machines were created from centuries of war experience, and their pilots had abilities far beyond normal humans. Compared to them, humanity was still young and inexperienced. Colt understood this better than anyone. He knew that many soldiers were afraid. He knew that many people believed they had no chance against such a powerful enemy. But he also knew something the Void Warriors did not understand. Humanity's greatest strength was never its technology. It was the ability to stand together when everything seemed impossible. As the enemy fleet moved closer to Earth, Colt prepared the new pilots for battle. These young warriors looked at him as a legend, but Colt reminded them that legends were not born from being perfect. Legends were created by people who continued fighting even when they were afraid. He told them that every person inside a mecha had their own reason for fighting. Some fought for family, some for friends, and some for the hope of a better future. Those reasons were what gave them strength. Meanwhile, Freya continued analyzing the alien technology. She discovered that the Void Warriors had a weakness. Their machines were incredibly powerful, but their entire system depended on a central energy network. If humanity could interrupt this network, the enemy forces would lose their advantage. However, reaching that network was almost impossible. The source was located inside the main enemy command ship, protected by their strongest warriors. Colt knew what had to be done. A special mission was created. A small group of elite pilots would enter enemy territory, reach the command ship, and disable the energy system. At the same time, the remaining forces would defend Earth from the main invasion. It was the most dangerous mission humanity had ever attempted. Before leaving, Colt spent a quiet moment with Freya. They both knew there was a chance he might not return. After everything they had experienced together, there was no need for long explanations. They understood each other without words. Freya reminded Colt that he no longer had to carry the weight of the world alone. Colt smiled and told her that was the reason he could keep fighting, because now he knew he had people waiting for him. The battle finally began. The Void Warriors launched their attack, sending thousands of advanced mechas toward Earth. The sky filled with explosions as human and alien machines collided. For a moment it looked like the enemy was unstoppable. Their technology was superior. Their experience was greater. Their numbers were overwhelming. But humanity refused to surrender. The young pilots trained by Colt fought with incredible determination. They protected each other and adapted quickly. Unlike the enemy soldiers who followed commands without question, human pilots fought with creativity and emotion. They made decisions based on the situation. They protected their teammates. They sacrificed themselves for others. And slowly, they began proving that humanity was stronger than the enemy expected. Meanwhile, Colt and his team entered enemy territory. Their mission was extremely dangerous because the Void Warriors quickly detected their presence. Elite enemy pilots were sent to stop them. Colt faced some of the strongest warriors he had ever encountered. Their mechas were faster than anything he had fought before, and every attack forced him to push his limits. But Colt had something they did not: experience. Every battle from his past had prepared him for this moment. He remembered the mistakes he made. He remembered the lessons he learned. He remembered every person who helped him become the warrior he was today. With those memories guiding him, Colt continued forward. Eventually, he reached the enemy command ship. Inside, he discovered that the Void Warriors were not completely different from humans. Their leader also believed he was protecting his people. He believed destroying weaker civilizations was necessary for survival. Colt realized that this war was not only about power, it was about different beliefs. The Void Warriors believed control created peace. Humanity believed freedom created hope. Their battle represented two completely different futures. The enemy leader challenged Colt personally, entering his strongest mecha. The machine was unlike anything Colt had seen before. It combined alien technology with centuries of battle experience. The fight became one of the most intense battles of Colt's life. Every attack shook the command ship. Every movement pushed both pilots closer to their limits. The enemy leader told Colt that humans were too emotional and too weak to survive the universe. But Colt answered that those emotions were exactly why humans continued fighting. Because humans cared. Because humans loved. Because humans believed tomorrow could be better. As the battle continued, Freya and the other pilots successfully reached the energy system. They prepared to disable it, but the enemy activated a final defense protocol. The entire ship began transforming. A hidden weapon appeared. The Void Warriors had prepared for this situation. Their final plan was not only to conquer Earth, it was to destroy it completely if they could not control it. Colt looked at the massive weapon appearing in front of him and realized the war had reached its final stage. Humanity was standing at the edge of destruction, and only one battle remained. The battle that would decide the future of Earth forever. The final battle for Earth had begun. The Void Warriors had revealed their ultimate weapon. A massive machine created with technology from countless conquered worlds. It was not just a mecha. It was a weapon designed to erase entire civilizations. The energy coming from the machine was so powerful that every defense system on Earth detected the danger. Everyone understood that this was the final moment. If Colt and his team failed, there would be no second chance for humanity. Inside his cockpit, Colt looked at the enormous enemy weapon standing before him. Throughout his entire life, he had faced impossible battles. He had fought enemies on Earth, uncovered hidden conspiracies, and even challenged warriors who believed they were beyond human limits. But this battle felt different. This was not only about defeating an enemy. This was about protecting everything humanity had built. The Void Warrior leader appeared on Colt's communication screen. He told Colt that the battle was meaningless. According to him, humanity was too weak and emotional to survive in the universe. He believed that civilizations like Earth always destroyed themselves because of conflict and disagreement. In his mind, eliminating weaker civilizations was the only way to create order. Colt listened quietly before answering. He told the enemy leader that he was right about one thing. Humans were not perfect. They made mistakes. They fought each other. They experienced fear and anger. But those imperfections were exactly what made humanity worth protecting. Because humans could learn. Humans could change. And humans could choose to become better. The enemy leader refused to accept his words and launched the final attack. The two legendary mechas moved toward each other with incredible speed. Their collision created shockwaves across space, shaking the battlefield around them. The power of both machines was beyond anything humanity had ever witnessed. The Void Warrior mecha had superior technology, stronger armor, and more advanced weapons. But Colt had something greater. Connection. A bond between himself and his mecha that was created through years of struggle, pain, and determination. Every battle he survived. Every person he protected. Every sacrifice he witnessed. All of it became the source of his strength. As the battle continued, Colt's mecha started suffering damage. The enemy's attacks were too powerful, and the system warned him that the machine could not continue much longer. But Colt refused to give up. At that moment, something unexpected happened. The other human pilots arrived to support him. The young warriors he trained, the soldiers who once doubted themselves, and the people who believed in his vision all joined the fight. They created a formation around Colt and combined their mecha's energy with his. For the first time, Colt was not fighting alone. The energy created by their connection reached a level never seen before. Freya watched the readings from the command center and realized what was happening. The mecha system was evolving. The original creators were right. The true power of the technology was not control. It was unity. The enemy leader became shocked. He had spent years trying to create the perfect warrior by removing emotions and controlling minds. But Colt had achieved something impossible without removing anything. He became stronger because of his humanity. The final battle reached its peak. Colt and his team launched their strongest attack against the enemy's ultimate weapon. The Void Warrior leader tried everything to stop them. But the machine that was supposed to represent perfection was defeated by something he could never understand. Hope. The attack broke through the enemy defenses and reached the core system. But Colt discovered one final problem. The weapon's destruction would create an explosion powerful enough to destroy both the enemy fleet and Earth. There was only one way to stop it. Someone had to enter the core manually and redirect the energy. Everyone realized what that meant. The pilot who entered might never return. Colt prepared himself without hesitation. Freya immediately understood what he was planning and tried to stop him. She told him that he had already sacrificed enough. He had spent years fighting, losing people, and carrying pain. He deserved to live peacefully. Colt smiled and told her something important. For years, he believed being the Mecha King meant sacrificing everything. But now he understood the truth. Being a hero was not about losing yourself. It was about protecting the things that gave your life meaning. He entered the core of the enemy weapon. Inside, he faced the final challenge. The system tried to control his mind one last time, showing him every painful memory from his past. But this time Colt was not afraid. He accepted everything. The sadness, the losses, the failures. Because all those moments created the person he became. The system could not break him. Instead, Colt used his connection with the mecha to redirect the energy. Outside, everyone watched as the enemy weapon began shutting down. The Void Warrior fleet lost power. The invasion stopped. The danger that threatened Earth for so long finally disappeared. But Colt's mecha remained inside the collapsing system. For a moment, everyone believed they had lost him. Freya stood silently, looking at the empty battlefield. Then suddenly a signal appeared. A weak but familiar signal. Colt's mecha emerged from the explosion. Damaged. Almost destroyed. But alive. The entire world celebrated. The war was finally over. Months later, humanity entered a new era. The battles had changed the world forever. Instead of creating weapons for destruction, people focused on cooperation and exploration. Human technology advanced through knowledge shared with other civilizations, and the mechas became symbols of protection rather than war. Colt never returned to his old life as a lonely warrior. He continued training new pilots and helping humanity prepare for the future. He was still known as the Mecha King, but now the title meant something different. It was not about being the strongest. It was about inspiring others. Freya remained by his side, continuing her research and creating technology that connected humans and machines in a better way. Colt finally found the peace he had searched for years ago. Not because he escaped his past, but because he accepted it. The man who once wanted to disappear became the person who united humanity. The legend of the Mecha King was no longer a story about war. It became a story about courage, hope, and the power of humanity. And as the stars continued shining above Earth, Colt knew that whatever challenges came next, humanity would face them together.